toy fans, Aaron here. Today taking a look at Anakin Skywalker from the Clone Wars animated series. This is the Tartakovsky series that aired on the Cartoon Network from 2003 to 2005. I love the card artwork for this. Nice bright white background, Clone Trooper helmet off on the left side. Big Star Wars logo there in the center. You got Clone Wars running down the left side of that blister, and then contained in that blister, of course, you see the action figure with a nice orange explosion behind him. Off on the right side of that blister, nice artwork of Anakin Skywalker curving off to the side. Looking at the back side, things are looking pretty nice here also. Got Anakin's name on the top right corner. Below that, you're going to get a generic write-up about the Clone Wars animated series. Off to the right, you got your character artwork of this included figure, which, as I've mentioned a few times, is Anakin Skywalker. And running down in the film strip shaded behind there are various angles of different headshots of Anakin Skywalker. Just to the left of that, to break things up a bit, you got your battlefield artwork of the clone troopers. And below that, you got a handful of other figures that were also available in this line. Taking a look at the figure out of the packaging, and overall, it's a pretty good looking figure. I have some, issues with it, very minor. I feel like this is probably the weakest in the bunch of the figures that they released for this line. Certainly as you look at it, it is done in the animated form and sculpted in the very same style that we saw the figures being featured as in this cartoon. So lots of sharp angles, very stylized, very action-oriented look to it. Looking at the head sculpt, this is where for me things fall apart a little bit for this figure. Hair coloring leans a little more orange than dark blonde like it should be. And something about the portrait, even though it is done as we saw him in the cartoon, still doesn't represent that well the way he looked. It's something about the chin, the structure of it just seems off. It's probably being pretty nitpicky, but considering the other characters that were released resembled so well how they looked on the show, that's where it's just a little bit disappointing that this one doesn't. Otherwise, though, the application of the paint, the eyebrows, the way the eyes are done, looks wonderful. I like the way the braid, even after all these years of sitting on the shelf, has still maintained its look and not drooped down. It's kind of got that windblown effect to it. Looking at the rest of the figure, overall coloring for me seems to lean a little more purple. When you look at the figure on its own, it's really not all that noticeable. But once you take a look at the figure the way, that artwork shown on the package or looking at it against the cartoon, it's just not that milk chocolate brown color. But like I said, that's really just some nitpicky observations here. Otherwise, everything really just stands out quite well. The dark brown of the uniform, light brown underneath, and then you have that purple shaded tunic underneath. All painted very well, staying right within the lines where it needs to be. I like the way the sleeves are angled back, once again giving you kind of an action look to this figure. He's in motion. The sculpting for his robotic arm on his right hand looks good, very, robotic. Nice yellow color to it. Good flesh tone painting for his left hand, matching up to the painting that they did for the face and neck. Looking around the waist, sculpting for that belt is looking nice. Different use of browns and a splash of dark purple in there for the little utility capsules on his belt. Nice pouch sculpting off on each side of the hip. And as we move down, of course you got his tabard sculpted in there. Ignore the little splotch on mine. It must have taken a fall off my shelf or something and some color bled onto it. But that aside, coloring still looking fantastic. And all the different shades of brown matches up very well to each other piece. So even though it's, obviously made up of different parts, everything matches up very well. And then continuing down the legs, still that action-oriented pose, looking really good. And I think they did a great job of sculpting in the way the boot looks. Got some lines of texture in there running vertically. You had some lighter brown painted in there for the straps on the top of his boot, and then once again down towards the ankle. And with that wide stance and flat feet, certainly no problem getting this figure to stay standing up. As far as articulation, as it is for the rest of the figures in this line, you're getting very limited movement, but that head does swivel all the way around. Both arms also rotate. For his right hand, you're only getting swivel there. Nothing for the left hand. And then you get a full swivel at the waist. As for accessories, you actually got two of them in the packaging. One being his lightsaber and the other one being a Star Wars figure stand. I have no idea where mine is right now, so I can't show that to you. So just focus in on the lightsaber. Pretty decent sculpting overall. Nice blue color for the blade. You get a little sparkle effect, if you will, at the top of the hilt. That wasn't done, as I recall, in the cartoon, but it was being done in the figures that were released around the time. And so, for whatever reason, that was included here. As far as the sculpting for the hilt itself, very identifiable as Anakin Skywalker's. I'm not too fond of the light blue coloring they did. I wish they would have left some silver in there. But you do at least have a little bit of black painting along the handle of the lightsaber. And certainly no problem getting him to hold it into his right hand. Actually has a very nice snap to it when you place it in there. So overall for me, this figure, while it's not my most favorite of the bunch, it still looks great. Certainly fits in well with the figures in the line as they maintained the look of the cartoon show and brought it forth in this small line of figures. I didn't do a full count, but I want to say maybe it was about a dozen or so figures that were released. Even though the articulation is dialed back from what we were receiving at the time, I gotta say I don't mind it. This was certainly something very different than the regular action figures we were getting, as these are kind of more statuesque than the regular figures you would play with. So even though things are a little bit limited in how you're going to be able to bend the arms or pose the legs, it's still going to look great standing on the shelf due to the great sculpt that they gave it. So that wraps this one up. Definitely let me know what your thoughts are on this figure in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching.